Imagine. You're joining a documentary expedition deep into a remote forest in the Cilacap region of East Java, a place the locals call a forbidden zone. Not without reason. Behind the towering trees and lingering mist, many say the forest holds stories that defy human understanding. This is where Erica's journey began. A young crew member with a burning passion. Her face lit up with excitement as she stepped onto the muddy trail. A camera hung around her neck. She walked behind the group, occasionally stopping to capture images of the thin mist drifting between the old pine trees. 3 days earlier, Erica and the Jejak Tampa Batas documentary team had traveled from Jakarta on a mission to explore the mystical side and untouched beauty of Cilacap's forest, one rarely seen through the lens of a camera. The team was made up of 5 people. The expedition leader was Awan, a seasoned adventurer. Then came Jody the scriptwriter, Indra the main camera operator, Dito the equipment technician, and Erica, the newcomer assigned to document behind-the-scenes footage. All of them were used to extreme terrains. But this time something felt different. The villagers where they were staying had warned them, do not cross the river known as Kalibuta. Beyond that river, they said, was no longer human territory. Of course, the team didn't immediately believe it. They assumed it was just folklore. But Awan, being respectful of local customs, agreed that their route would stay on the outer side of Kalibuta. What they didn't realize was that morning, after 2 hours of hiking, the thick fog descended earlier than usual. Their digital compass began pointing in strange directions. Cell phones had lost signal since sunrise. And the sounds of forest animals suddenly vanished. All they could hear was the wind and their own footsteps. At that moment, Erica had fallen a few meters behind. She stopped to film the silhouette of sunlight piercing through the tree branches. That's when her camera captured something. A black shadow darted swiftly between the trees. Too large to be a bird, too low to be fog, too vivid to be an illusion. Erica froze. She rewound the footage, but the shadow was gone. She frowned, then hurried to catch up with the team up ahead. That night, they arrived at a flat area suitable for setting up camp. Trees surrounded the clearing like natural walls. In the heart of the silent forest, they lit a fire. Indra set up the camera, while Erica sat examining her footage on a small laptop. She said nothing about the shadow she'd seen. Perhaps afraid of sounding paranoid. Or maybe she wasn't even sure of what she saw. At exactly 11 that night, as the others started to sleep, Erica remained awake. The video she was editing for the vlog contained something odd. Strange sound. Not an animal. Not the wind. But a long whisper. Like someone softly calling from afar. Erica shut her laptop. She took a deep breath, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped out of the tent. From afar, a security camera placed on a tree recorded Erica walking away. It looked like she was following something. But she didn't seem rushed. Her steps were slow. As if in a trance. She never returned that night. And when the sun rose the next morning, Erica's tent was empty. That morning, bird songs could barely be heard in the distance. Sunlight slipped through the canopy, forming warm beams in the cold remnants of night. Awan was the first to wake up, then gently roused the others. One by one they got up, all groggy, except Erica. Her tent was still zipped shut. But when Awan called her from outside, there was no response. He knocked softly, calling her name again and again. Still silence. Sensing something was wrong, he unzipped the tent. It was empty. Her sleeping bag was unused, neatly laid out. Her backpack was still inside, so were her laptop and camera. That's weird, where could she be? Dito muttered. The search began immediately. They split up, covering a 30-meter radius from the tent, calling Erica's name. No response. No footprints on the damp ground. Even their own footsteps seemed drowned in the deep silence of the forest. Indra played back the footage from the security camera they'd set up the night before. Huddled around a small screen, they held their breath. The footage showed Erica leaving the tent at 11:47 p.m. She carried a small flashlight but didn't turn it on. Her steps were straight, walking between two large trees, known by the villagers as the Gate of Spirits. Her body looked normal, no signs of panic or fear. But the final moments of the footage sent chills down their spines. Erica slowly turned her head to the right, as if hearing something, then gave a faint smile and vanished into the fog. The recording ended there. "I really don't like this," Jody whispered, his face pale. Awan tried to remain rational. He ordered them to expand the search but stay within eyesight of each other. They walked in the direction Erica was last seen, past the large trees, down a path they hadn't planned on taking. The farther they went, the stranger the forest became. The air turned colder, the ground wetter, and sunlight seemed blocked out by the leaves above. More than once, they felt footsteps behind them, but whenever they turned, nothing. Suddenly Jody stopped. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a low-hanging branch. A scrap of dark fabric hung from it, possibly a piece of Erica's shirt. One took it and sniffed. The scent was strange. Not mud, not blood, but like an intense burning incense. Then Indra showed his compass. "The needle's spinning like crazy, bro. This isn't normal." The sky was cloudy, yet there was no sign of rain. The wind died down. Animal sounds vanished again. They stood frozen on that narrow path. Ahead, only giant trees stood like ancient guardians. Below them, the fog hung low, as if hiding something not meant for human eyes. Finally, Awan signaled for everyone to return to camp. It was getting late, and the situation was growing more worrisome. They agreed that if Erica wasn't found by evening, they would head back to the village. But deep down, each of them knew, this wasn't just a missing person case. Something was behind all of this. Something they couldn't understand, and might not be able to fight. That afternoon, the camp was filled with unease. The wind blew gently, but its chill pierced the skin. The campfire was rekindled, even though it wasn't yet evening. Awan sat silently on a fallen tree trunk, staring up at the sky, now turning an ominous shade of gray. Beside him, Jody was still trying to get a signal, holding his phone in every direction, but the screen continued to show nothing but the no service icon. Indra and Dito hadn't stopped replaying the camera footage. In one frame, they caught something previously unnoticed. At the exact second Erica disappeared into the fog, another shadow appeared. Faint but unmistakable. It was much taller than any human, standing motionless between two trees. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, reflected light like an animal's in the night. But it never moved, not even a twitch. "This isn't human, bro." Indra's voice barely broke the silence. Awan closed his eyes for a moment, trying to recall everything the villagers had warned them about before they left. The taboo about crossing Kalibuta, the warnings about sacred times, and one phrase that now echoed relentlessly in his mind. "If you hear your name called while alone, don't look back." Night returned, this time earlier than usual. The forest seemed to swallow the afternoon light. The chirping of crickets completely vanished. No breeze, no animals, not even mosquitoes. Awan felt as if something or someone was watching them from a distance. Couldn't be seen, but it could definitely be felt. Suddenly Jody stood up. His eyes stared blankly toward the forest. "Erica," he whispered. "Jod, what's wrong with you?" Dito asked, alarmed. Jody didn't respond. He slowly stepped outside the circle of firelight. Awan instantly jumped up and pulled him back. "Don't ever say that name out loud here," Awan warned, his breathing growing heavier. Jody sat back down, pale. He admitted he had heard a woman's voice calling from the north. The voice was soft, like it came through a dream, but unmistakably real. And it was calling his name. He also smelled the strong scent of incense, exactly like what Awan had sensed earlier that afternoon. None of them slept that night. They gathered inside the main tent, a small lamp dimly glowing in the center. But even in close quarters, the fear made everyone feel far apart. Then the sounds began. Not animals, not wind, But footsteps, many of them, circling the tent. The footsteps moved around slowly, stopping by the right side. Then to the left. Then behind them. Indra clutched his camera with trembling hands. He peeked through a tiny gap in the tent's zipper, but saw only blackness. Still in the distance, a woman's voice could be heard singing something. A song with no lyrics, just a haunting melody drifting through the silence. Grew louder, closer, as if it were walking straight toward them. And when the singing stopped, the small tent lamp suddenly went out. For several seconds after the light died, everything was shrouded in total darkness. Only the sound of their breathing remained. No one dared to move. Indra gripped his camera tighter, hoping the battery would last long enough to record whatever happened. But the power button wouldn't respond. It was as if all their electronics had simultaneously died. Outside, the sound of leaves being stepped on returned. This time not from one direction but all around them. The footsteps came from every side, slow and rhythmic, like something encircling them. Awan raised a finger, signaling complete silence. Jody held his breath. Dito trembled, gripping a small machete hidden beneath his jacket. Suddenly, there was the sound of fabric tearing at the back of the tent. Then, the tent itself began to shift slightly. Something was pulling at it slowly. Awan immediately unzipped the front and leapt outside, flashlight in hand. The yellow beam cut through the thickening mist. But no one was there. The forest remained still, frozen. He turned, scanning the trees, and pointed his light upward. And that's when he saw it. Something stood still behind the large tree they had passed earlier that day. A towering figure, far larger than a person. Its form was hazy, almost blending in with the trunk itself. But its eyes glowed a faint red, staring directly at Awan. He slowly backed into the tent and said only, "Don't go outside. No matter what happens." Morning arrived without rooster calls, without fog, and without wind. But the air felt heavier than it had the night before. No one spoke. They all knew something was following them. Not an animal, not a person, but something that had lived in that place for God knows how long. Before breakfast, Awan decided to check the trail cam they had mounted on the tree. To their surprise, the camera was still recording. They huddled around to review the footage. What they saw made their blood run cold. The video showed Erica. She stood between the two giant trees, her head slightly bowed. But her face. It wasn't the Erica they knew. Her eyes were empty, her skin pale gray, and her movements stiff like a wooden puppet. Behind her, another shadow appeared. Larger, taller, standing motionless. Then it vanished behind the tree. But the most chilling part was at the end. The camera recorded Erica's voice. Clear, as if she were standing right in front of the lens. "I'm already here. Don't look for me. If you keep going, you won't come back." And then the screen went dark. After watching the footage, the air inside the tent turned to ice. None of them spoke a single word. Their eyes met, but their lips remained sealed, as if something was forbidding them from speaking of what they had just seen. Awan took a deep breath and stood, his face stern. "We have to get out of here," he said quietly but firmly. But Dito refused. "We can't just leave Erica. No matter what, she's still our friend." Awan stared at him for a long time, then replied in an even lower voice. "What you saw in that video, that's not Erica." Silence fell. True silence. Until Indra, his voice trembling, admitted he had smelled burning incense again that morning, right when he retrieved the camera from the tree. The same scent they had sensed before. And at that same spot, he saw footprints, but not human. They were long, with claw-like toes that gripped the earth. And more disturbingly, the tracks led toward the one place they had avoided since the first day, the edge of Kalibuta. Kalibuta, the invisible boundary that the villagers warned them never to cross. The water looked like any ordinary river. Not deep, not fast. But no locals ever dared to cross it, not even to fetch water. They believed that beyond the river, It was no longer human land. And now the tracks led there. As if pulled by something unseen, they followed, though their hearts grew heavier with every step. Step by step, they moved in silence, pushing past thick underbrush and the roots that jutted from the ground like skeletal limbs. Mist began to fall again, even though the sun still hung high. Jody kept glancing over his shoulder, as if he felt they were being followed. The whispering returned. But this time it wasn't faint. The whisper spoke their names, one by one, softly, almost inaudibly, but unmistakably. When they reached the riverbank of Kalibuta, the water looked calm, but it reflected nothing. No sky, no trees, just a dark surface that rejected all reflections. And across the river, beneath a withered tree stripped of its leaves, stood a figure that froze their blood. Erica. She stood with her head bowed, her hair covering her face, her body completely still. Her clothes were the same as the last time they saw her. But her feet and hands did not touch the ground. She hovered slightly above the surface, as if held aloft by something invisible. Erica! Dito shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the air. The figure slowly raised her head. Her face was now visible. Her eyes, completely black with no whites left. Her mouth moved without sound. And what they saw next was far worse. Behind Erica, a large dark figure emerged, towering like a dead tree come to life. Its arms were long, reaching downward, curling around Erica's body slowly. Jody suddenly vomited. Indra collapsed to the ground. Awan clutched his chest. His breath caught in panic. Across the river, Erica lifted her hand and pointed directly at them. Then, the entire forest went black. As darkness swallowed the forest, they could no longer tell if it was day or night. There was no light, no wind, no sound. Even their own heartbeats seemed to vanish. Only one feeling remained, a coldness that seeped deep into the bone. This was no ordinary darkness. It was a void, erasing their very presence. Moments later, a faint glow began to rise. Not from the sky, but from the ground beneath them. The earth shimmered dimly, lit by embers glowing red from somewhere deep below. The mist thickened into smoke, and the trees around them appeared to pull back, forming a path, a dark corridor that stretched endlessly forward. Overhead, where the sky should have been, an alien sound began to hum. Not language, not music, but a chant, something ancient, older than words. They were no longer in the same forest. "I think we've crossed over," Jody murmured. "Even if we never stepped into that river." No one replied. They walked slowly, as though drawn by an unseen force. Ahead of them, Erica's figure led the way. Her head bowed, her body still hovering above the ground. They didn't realize they were following her, as if their will no longer belonged to them. The deeper they went, the stranger the forest became. Trees twisted like living roots, some groaned like crying voices. The air grew heavy with the scent of incense and blood. Breathing became a struggle. On their left, they saw tracks that looked human, except with extra toes. On their right, a massive stone bore carvings of screaming faces, mouths frozen in silent agony. Dito began whispering prayers under his breath. His hands trembled. He no longer knew what to believe in. Erica's body stopped in front of a massive stone gate, half collapsed. A strip of red cloth hung above it, fluttering in wind that didn't exist. Behind the gate, a crack slowly opened, pure black, stretching into nothingness. "Don't go in," Awan whispered, but no one heard him. Then, a voice echoed from within the gap. A woman's voice. It sounded like Erica, but deeper, older, and it spoke a single sentence that struck them like a blade. "You called my name. Now you must live inside it." Suddenly the earth shook. The fog surged in from all directions. The air turned to ice. Erica turned to face them, and for the first time, her eyes showed emotion, grief. A single tear fell from her cheek before her body was yanked into the void by shapeless black hands. Jody screamed her name. But before he could run, tree roots shot from the ground, wrapping around his legs. Indra was pulled backward by a shadow, tumbling into the underbrush. Awan grabbed Dito's hand, trying to hold him against the force now rising from beneath the soil. In the middle of the chaos, a distant chime rang out, 3 strikes like an ancient bell tolling from above. Then silence. When Awan opened his eyes, he was alone. Dito, Jody, Indra. No trace. No sound. No Erica. Only one thing remained. Erica's small camera lying on the cracked dry earth. Awan stared at the small camera with trembling hands. He didn't touch it right away. A strange coldness surrounded it, as if the object still carried something alive within it. But that was all that remained. No sound. No friends. The forest around him had returned to how it was, silent and damp. No giant stone. No rift. No thick fog. As if the place he had entered was nothing more than a nightmare that briefly bled into reality. He crouched and slowly picked up the camera, turning it on. The screen flickered for a moment, then lit up. There was still some battery left. He opened the last file. The video began in the tent, the night before Erica disappeared. Her voice was normal like always. Erica was recording herself, looking a bit tired. Day 4. This forest keeps getting colder. But something's strange. I heard that voice again. The one calling my name. I don't know why. I'm not scared. I'm curious. Then the screen shook. Erica stood and walked out of the tent with the camera. She followed a narrow path, stopping in front of a tall tree. That's when the voice came again. It came through the camera speaker, a woman's voice calling softly. Erica! Come here. In the footage, Erica walked deeper into the woods. Her voice grew heavier. Her breathing slowed. She began talking to herself. I think I know this place. Like I've been here before. Then the screen shook violently. The video turned black. But the audio kept playing. Heavy footsteps. Breathing that wasn't hers. And a long whisper, like a prayer, but in a language Awan didn't recognize. Suddenly the video resumed. Erica was now sitting beneath the tree. Her eyes were empty. She stared directly into the camera and said, I'm no longer Erica. I'm just a face you recognize. But this soul. It was called long before you ever arrived. Then the screen froze. The video ended. Awan slowly closed the camera. His eyes glistened. He stood and looked around at the forest, now still again. He knew he had to get out fast. But before he could take a step, a voice from behind him made him freeze. A soft, female voice called out, Awan! His body trembled instantly. He remembered the villager's warning. If you hear your name called when you're alone, do not turn around. But fear and curiosity tangled inside his chest. His breath caught. The voice came again, closer now. Softer. More familiar. Awan. He closed his eyes. But the voice continued. Closer. Until he could feel warm breath against his neck. Awan couldn't take it anymore. He turned around slowly. And when he saw what was behind him, the world shattered before his eyes. That same night, in Erica's room, the wind howled fiercely that night. The sound of banana leaves behind Erica's house thrashed against the wooden walls. She shivered, not just from the cold, but from a heavy sense of dread. In her room, dimly lit by a flickering lamp, she had another nightmare. In the dream, a woman with a face full of scars stared at her from the window, her lips moving silently. Erica woke with a gasp. She glanced at the clock. 2:13 a.m. Same as the previous nights. Then, like before, came the sound of knocking from the kitchen door. 3 times. Then silence. Too scared to move, Erica curled into the corner of her room, whispering prayers under her breath. She didn't know who or what visited each night. The next morning, Erica gathered the courage to ask her elderly neighbor, Bumaina, about it. Voice shaking, she shared what had been happening. But the moment she mentioned the time and the knocking, Bumaina turned pale. Your daughter's still living alone in that house? Bumaina asked, voice trembling. Erica nodded. Bumina took a deep breath, then said, "It's time you knew. That house used to belong to a female shaman. She was burned alive by the villagers. They accused her of cursing children. But her spirit never left. Especially not when a young woman lives there." The explanation stunned Erica. She had never imagined her humble family home held such a dark history. But suddenly everything made sense. The smell of kananga flowers at night, the whispering from under the bed, the shadow in the corner of her mirror. None of it was coincidence. That night, Erica tried reading from the Surah Yasin softly. But by the second verse, her room's light flickered and died. The candle she lit melted down instantly, without flame. Then from the kitchen came slow, dragging footsteps. Erica shut her Quran, curled into the corner of her room, and heard a voice, heavy and cold, whispering near her ear. "I want to live in your body now." Erica screamed, but no sound came out. No one came. That night, it felt like something was sitting on her chest. She could barely breathe. Her heart nearly stopped. But before passing out, she saw it. The silhouette of an old woman in the corner of the room, grinning wickedly while holding a fistful of hair. The next morning, Erica was burning with fever. Nothing could wake her. And her left eye wouldn't stop moving, tracking something no one else could see.